Have you ever noticed how two people can start in almost the same place, yet 10 years later their lives look completely different? It usually isn't because one got lucky and the other didn't. It isn't because one had more talent. And it isn't because one perfect opportunity changed everything. The biggest difference often comes from one decision, a decision so small that most people ignore it. But once it's made, it quietly shapes thousands of choices that follow. If you've ever felt stuck, distracted, or unsure where your life is heading, this video is for you. Because the decision we're talking about today isn't about changing your job, moving to a new city, or waking up at 5 a.m. It's much deeper than that. And once you understand it, you'll never look at your future the same way again. Most people believe their future depends on big moments. Graduating, getting promoted, starting a business, meeting the right person. But life rarely changes because of one dramatic event. Instead, it changes through the small decisions you repeat every day. The problem is that we often focus on today's comfort instead of tomorrow's results. Scrolling for another 20 minutes feels harmless. Skipping today's workout feels harmless. Putting off one important task feels harmless. None of these decisions seem important on their own, but together, they become your future. And this is where most people don't realize something important. Your life is not built by your biggest decisions. It's built by your repeated ones. Every repeated choice becomes evidence for the kind of person you believe you are. That brings us to the one decision that can change the next 10 years. It's the decision to become the kind of person who keeps promises to yourself. Think about that for a moment. Not someone who feels motivated. Not someone who waits for perfect timing. Not someone who hopes life gets easier. Someone who trusts themselves because they do what they said they would do. This is an identity decision, not just a productivity decision. Psychologists have found that our brains naturally try to stay consistent with how we see ourselves. If you repeatedly tell yourself, "I'm terrible at sticking to habits," your brain begins looking for proof that it's true. But if you begin seeing yourself as someone who follows through even in small ways, your future actions start matching that identity. The change doesn't happen overnight, but it begins immediately. Imagine two people. Both want to become healthier. The first says, "I need motivation." The second says, "I'm becoming someone who takes care of my health." The first depends on emotion. The second depends on identity. Months later, who is more likely to continue when motivation disappears? That's the hidden power of this decision. You're not chasing results anymore. You're becoming someone who naturally creates them. But there's another obstacle that quietly steals years from people's lives. Decision fatigue. Every day, your brain makes thousands of choices. What to wear, what to eat, whether to check your phone, whether to work or procrastinate. By evening, your mental energy is lower than you realize. That's why relying on willpower alone rarely works. Successful habits aren't built because people have endless discipline. They're built because people reduce unnecessary decisions. For example, preparing tomorrow's clothes tonight, planning tomorrow's priorities before bed, keeping the phone away while working. These seem simple, but simple systems protect your attention. And attention is one of your most valuable resources. Because whatever consistently gets your attention eventually shapes your life. But what most people don't realize is that your brain is also chasing rewards. Every notification, every short video, every quick distraction gives your brain a small dopamine reward. The problem isn't dopamine itself. The problem is training your brain to expect easy rewards all day. When difficult work feels less rewarding than endless scrolling, focus becomes harder. That's why many people think they've lost discipline. In reality, they've trained their attention in the wrong direction. The solution isn't to remove all enjoyment from life. It's to create space where your brain remembers how satisfying, meaningful progress feels. Start with something simple. Spend 30 uninterrupted minutes on one meaningful task every day. No notifications, no multitasking, just focused work. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. That's normal. Your brain is adjusting. But over time, your ability to concentrate grows stronger. And stronger focus leads to better work. Better work creates confidence. Confidence creates momentum. Momentum changes lives. Now here's where many people make a mistake. They think one bad day means failure. They miss one workout, skip one study session, break one good habit. Then they say, "I've ruined everything." But that's not how growth works. One mistake rarely changes your future. Giving up because of one mistake does. Think of a pilot flying across the ocean. The plane is constantly adjusting its direction. Small corrections keep it on course. Your life works the same way. You don't need perfection. You need consistent correction. Every time you notice yourself drifting, gently return to the direction you chose. That's how long-term success is built. Not through flawless performance, through repeated recovery. And here's another truth that many people overlook. Your environment often decides your behavior before your motivation does. If your phone is always beside you, you'll probably pick it up. If healthy food is easy to reach, you'll probably eat it. If your desk is prepared before work begins, starting becomes easier. Don't only try to become stronger. Make good decisions easier. Remove unnecessary friction. Because discipline becomes much simpler when your environment supports it. Now imagine yourself 10 years from today. Not the perfect version. Just a version that kept improving by 1% most days. Reading instead of scrolling a little more often. Walking instead of sitting a little more often. Learning instead of avoiding discomfort. Keeping promises to yourself more often than breaking them. Would that person be different? Of course. Not because of one huge breakthrough. Because thousands of ordinary days quietly added up. That's the future you're building right now, whether you realize it or not. So the one decision that can change the next 10 years isn't choosing the perfect career or waiting for the perfect opportunity. It's deciding that your future self deserves today's effort. It's deciding to become someone who follows through. Someone who acts according to values instead of temporary feelings. Someone who understands that every small choice is casting a vote for the person they're becoming. You don't have to change your whole life today. You only have to make one decision. The decision to trust yourself enough to keep one promise, then another, then another. Because confidence isn't something you find. It's something you build through evidence. And every promise you keep becomes another piece of that evidence. 10 years from now, your life will reflect the choices you repeat, not the dreams you delay. So make today's choice count. Before you leave, I'd love to hear from you. What is one promise you're ready to keep to yourself starting today? Which part of this video connected with you the most? And where in the world are you watching from? If this message helped you think differently about your future, keep building, keep learning, and most importantly, keep becoming the person your future self will thank you for.